Still, many people have clung to the idea of the Bible as a historically accurate document, many times out of ideological necessity. Many fear that if the historical information in the Bible isn't true, then the Bible is unreliable as a source of religious instruction or inspiration. And that's something they don't want to give up. And this is all really a very unfortunate and heavy burden to place on this fascinating little library of writings from late antiquity. People who equate truth with historical fact will certainly end up viewing the Bible dismissively as a naive and unsophisticated web of lies, since it is replete with elements that cannot be literally true. But to view it this way is to make a genre mistake. Shakespeare's Hamlet, while set in Denmark, an actual place, is not historical fact. But that doesn't make it a naive and unsophisticated web of lies, because we accept when we read or watch Hamlet that it is not a work of historiography, a work of writing about history. It is a work of literature. And in deference to that genre and its conventions, we know and accept that the truths it conveys are not those of historical fact, but are social, political, ethical, existential truths. And the Bible deserves at least the same courteous attention to its genre. The Bible doesn't pretend to be, and it shouldn't be read as what we would call objective history. And to see the scare quotes, you should be looking up there so you see the scare quotes. Objective history. In other words, perhaps a bare narration of events. To be sure, we do find that some events that are mentioned in the biblical text correlate to events that we know of from sources outside the Bible. So, for example, Pharaoh Shishak's invasion of Palestine in 924. This is mentioned in the biblical text. It's mentioned in the Egyptian sources. There's a nice correlation. The destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel in 722. The capture of Jerusalem in 597. The destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 586. These are all recorded in the biblical text, and they are in Assyrian and Babylonian records as well as other events from the period of the monarchy. So as a result, because of these correlations, many scholars are willing to accept the general biblical chronology of the period from the monarchy on. Starting about 1000 on, they accept that general chronology, the sequence of kings and battles and so on. But ultimately, it is a mistake, I think, to read the Bible as a historical record. The Bible is literature. Its composition is influenced and determined by literary conventions and goals. Now, of course, we all know that there is no such thing as purely objective history anyway. We have no direct access to past events. We only ever have mediated access in material archaeological remains that yield information to us only after a process of interpretation, or in texts that are themselves already an interpretation of events and must still be interpreted by us. The biblical narrative is an interpretation of events that were held by centuries-long tradition to be meaningful in the life of the people. And to the biblical narrators, these events, known perhaps from ancient oral traditions, pointed to a divine purpose. And the narrative is told to illustrate that basic proposition. The biblical narrators are not trying to write history as a modern historian might try to write history. They are concerned to show us what they believe to be the finger of God in the events and experiences of the Israelite people. And once we rid ourselves of the burden of historicity, we're free to appreciate the stories for what they are. Powerful, powerful narratives that must be read against the literary conventions of their time and whose truths are social, political, moral, and existential.